I am a recovering addict. I started out as a recreational marijuana smoker, and slowly over time, I became heavily involved in drugs, and in the last stint of my use, I was shooting up heroin pretty much every day.
As a parent of 4 children, 2 of whom had substance issues in middle school, it certainly was a surprise, but it can happen to anyone.
Even though your child plays sports, even though your child has fantastic grades, it really doesn't matter.
Substance use does not discriminate.
So I don't necessarily think parents and students, for that matter, are aware of what a pervasive problem this is.
In working within this field, I've never met an individual who raised their hand and said, I want to be a drug addict, I want to be an alcoholic. Individuals start using drugs and alcohol by experimentation because their friends are using.
Give your kids the language to say no thank you. You know, make sure your children understand that you will be disappointed if they try drugs or alcohol.
One of the things that I've noticed over my 25 years of law enforcement experience is an increase in permissibility by adults for young people to engage in marijuana use and alcohol use.
Alcohol is one of the substances that is the most prevalent in the lives of our children, and one that they usually start with because of accessibility.
People don't like to think of alcoholic beverages as gateway drugs, but they certainly are.
As a parent, I think we have to ask ourselves, are what we're modeling the behaviors that we feel are ones that we would like our children to repeat?
Boys' brains don't mature until age 25. Girls' brains don't mature until age 23. So one episode of binge drinking can affect memory and learning and cognitive ability.
As a nurse practitioner, I see children starting as young as 9 and 10 with substance use.
The problems that I'm seeing are across the board.
Young people put ecstasy on candy necklaces and wear them around their neck.
It's affecting all students.
They realize that most adult people are not paying attention to them. And it's okay because they're not going to be caught.
Too often, parents are intimidated by their children who might say, you gotta let me do this. You're the only parent who says no.
Kids are gonna bump up against a boundary. That's their job as a teenager.
And sometimes it's gonna mean doing the tough stuff, setting rules, sticking to those rules.
Whether it's drinking or drugs or driving too fast. But kids need to know where the boundary is, and kids need to know what the consequences are.
The meaning of discipline is to teach, and that really is our role as a parent, to teach our children. It's not punish, it's to teach them. Some parents are reluctant, I find, to talk with their children about drug use early, thinking that if they raise this issue, this may be something that is going to encourage the behavior, when in fact it really is just the opposite from that.
Just because you're talking to your children about drugs and alcohol doesn't mean that they're doing it, doesn't mean that you're condoning it, but you have to have those conversations.
But ask them questions about it. Not judgment, but questions.
Parents who address it show that they're willing to talk about it early, and children are more likely to come to them as teenagers with questions.
You figure out a way to get your message across to them. You figure out a way to encourage them to be responsible.
Parents, we really need you to help us.
This is not an issue that is relegated to one family, one entity to resolve. Law enforcement cannot solve this problem alone.
Parents also need to know that they can't just ignore it. It's not going to go away on its own.
Be aware of any changes that you may see with your child, and if you're not sure, talk to someone in your community. Talk to a drug and alcohol counselor.
And when it comes to substances, model the behaviors that we want to see.
Schools can't do it alone, parents can't do it alone, community can't do it alone. We really need to work together to really solve this problem.